grandpa got injured in Italy, and I haven't gone there. I've seen.
All right, looks like it's 5 o'clock. I think we'll go ahead and get started in our meeting. Welcome everyone to the Cache County Council meeting. We're glad that you are here to join us. We're going to go ahead and give the opening to Barbara Tidwell tonight.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to all the legislators and for the session that they went through. It was a tough session. There was a lot of things that we discussed, and I'm grateful for the council and how they got involved with a lot of the things that were going on down there. And, you know, we may not agree with everything that was done or said, but I think they need to be given kudos for serving and doing the best that they thought that they could. And I know that I appreciate it as a member of Cache County, and I think that we can all be grateful for what they do and that we live in this great country that allows that to be done. And I'd like to finish my comments in a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful to Thee for this beautiful day. We're grateful for the moisture we've received. We're grateful for this country that we live. We're grateful for this valley that we live in. We're grateful for all those who serve in any capacity. We're grateful for being able to serve ourselves and pray that Thou would be with us, that we may serve with a clear conscience and do our best. And this is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, sorry. if you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Barbara. I echo what you say about being grateful for our legislators. They do a lot in a very short amount of time. Okay, I will accept a motion if anyone has had a chance to review the agenda, or for the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, how about the minutes? Can I get a motion to accept the minutes from last meeting?
I'll move that we accept the minutes from last meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Any
will
opposed?
abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay, thank you. All right, county executive.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just have a couple of quick items. Wanted to report that the fire board has appointed 4 mayors to the board. Previously, it was just myself and council members Erickson and Buse serving on that board. But today the fire board met and appointed 2 mayors from the north and 2 mayors from the south. The 2 from the south are Mayor Miller from Hiram and Mayor Jacobson from Nibley. The 2 from the north are Mayor Peterson from North Logan and Mayor Monson from Smithfield. So I'd just like to thank those 4 mayors for being willing to serve, and going forward we'll have a larger fire board to make important decisions that are coming up. Also, kind of a fun item, a local painter donated a painting to the county, and maybe on your way out, if you'd like to look at it, it's in the hallway by the stairway, actually, just past the elevator. Dennis Watkins, local resident, business owner, painted a beautiful painting of a portion of our valley. I won't tell you where it is. I'd like you to look at it and see if you recognize it. Take a look at it, but I just would like to thank Mr. Watkins for his generous and beautiful donation to the county, and I also wanted to thank former council member Carl Ward, who helped to facilitate the donation. Also wanted to mention that the Bear River Health Department conducted interviews today. I participated in those for the new Director of Behavioral Health, and we interviewed some great candidates today, and we'll be moving forward with that process of selecting someone to help guide our consolidation of mental health and substance abuse services at Bear River Health Department. And speaking of the Health Department, I do have a name from the Health Department to present to you for a new board member for the Board of Health. And I would like to, before I present that name, to thank former board member Blake Rose, who served on the Board of Health. He was the CEO of Cache Valley Hospital, and that Cache Valley Hospital is part of a larger conglomerate of hospitals, and so he was transferred to another hospital outside of our valley, so he stepped down from serving on the board, but he was an asset to that board and provided some great expertise. But in his absence, created a vacancy, and the Board of Health had a selection committee that reviewed applicants and interviewed them and made a proposal to the Board of Health, and that proposal was then was unanimously recommended by that committee and by the Board of Health to come to the County Council for appointment, and the name that has been proposed is Dr. Rebecca Eccles. She has actually a Master's of Public Health that she earned at Utah State University, but she's as well a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine and teaches in the Veterinary Medicine School at Utah State University. And she's actually volunteered for the Health Department as part of the Medical Reserve Corps, helped out during the pandemic in that role, and the Board of Health was excited about having someone to serve who could provide some expertise in relation to public health and how animal health and public health interact. So the recommendation from the Board of Health is that the County Council appoint Rebecca Eccles to fill that vacancy on the Board of Health.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on that?
Move to approve Rebecca Eccles for the Bear River Board of Health.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Those who are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, thank you very much, and that concludes my report for this evening.
Okay. Next thing on our agenda is Wendy Hassan. Turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. Wendy Hassan, Cache Valley Center for the Arts. Every other year, we get the opportunity to come before you to renew our local arts agency designation. This is a state designation. It doesn't really get us more money, but it puts us into the circles where information is passed along to us to pass along to our local arts groups. There are 14 kinds of things that local arts agencies do, of which you need to accomplish 4 in order to receive this designation. We think we do 10 of them. If you disagree, you're welcome to let me know and we can reevaluate those. But a local arts agency is set apart from a traditional arts agency or arts organization because they're charged with taking an interest in and fostering the arts in a geographical region rather than just say our own patrons. So rather than say we just care about the folks that come and buy tickets to the Ellen Eccles and take classes at the Bullen Arts Center, we really care about the health of the arts in actually the greater Cache Valley area, even sometimes extending beyond our borders to nurture and do whatever we can to encourage partnerships and cooperation with that in that ecosystem. So we could really quick run through those 14 things, and you can stop me if any of them are a question for you. But do you have the control of that? Go ahead, and that was kind of what I just said. So let's go to the first one. Keep going. So one is providing access to diverse art forms that facilitate public participation. So you can see we have everything from photography to ceramics, modern dance, and the performing arts. Next. Programs and services that include and support the cultural diversity and traditional arts of the community. We really don't think we really honor this one as much. There are organizations like the Bear River Heritage Area that are maybe doing more work in this area. Next. Engaging in community development through the arts. We actually work quite a bit with economic development. Sean and I have frequent conversations about the way we attract and retain a qualified workforce and even train that workforce. Next. Conducting cultural and community assessment and planning that encourages input from community members. We're actually celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Quarterly Arts Summit, a grassroots network of organizations that get together and solve problems, do professional development, and build partnerships. Next. And this is a bunch of data. We can just skip through all of that. If you have any questions about economic impact of the arts, we try to keep abreast of national studies. Go ahead and scroll through the next. We have some amazing stats. I won't take your time with them now, but they're in the record. And I, as Executive Zook would say, would put us up against anyone for our participation in the arts. We have national data that supports that. Go ahead. And there's even data here from multiple organizations showing the darker you are, the more your participation is. You can see that Utah is as dark as you can go here in this coordinate and also in the next one. And next. And this is the county. You can actually kind of see county map densities of arts participation from yet another source. So we gather information like this. Next. And we are actually utilized by per capita groups all across the county. That's a little less important for this designation, but it does show that it's valued throughout the county with the data we have. I'd like to expand this and get data from all of the participating groups as well. Continue. Providing stewardship of a community's art collection, we don't do this. Logan City has its own. There are some amazing ones we try to raise awareness and attention to. Next. Engaging in programs that promote the arts advocacy levels at the local, state, or national level. We just participated in Arts Day at the Hill. We're keeping a close eye on federal things and just making sure that we are keeping the arts part of the conversation. Next. Arts education, K-12, adult education, creative aging. So much of this happens throughout our valley, and not just the littles, but throughout our lifespan. We're seeing a lot of activity in creative aging right now, which we're very excited to see. We were able to provide some funding for arts instructors to take community aging classes and pay for their time so that they could gain this training. Managing a public art program, we also don't do that, but we know who does in the Valley and like to connect people to it. Next. Producing or presenting arts programs such as arts festivals, public art projects, community theater, concerts, workshops, etc. And these are some of the touring shows that we've brought in this last year. There's a couple remaining on our season. Next. Granting or providing financial support to cultural organizations or artists in the community. Really, RAPS does this for the county, but we have received some private donations that we've been able to help target throughout the valley where it's needed. And we've been grateful for that trust, but it's not something we see ourselves doing on a regular basis. Facilitating economic development efforts that support the creative economy through arts industries. We're very excited about this. And if you have suggestions or ideas for us, please let us know. Continue. And managing one or more cultural facilities in the community. We have the care of 3, the Ellen Eccles Theater, the Bullen Arts Center, and the Thatcher Young Mansion. Next. That's the same, more pictures of the stuff. And one more. Okay, and contribute to creative placemaking activities. The groups that we work with actually bought the second set of banner poles on Theater Block, and we've coordinated some art in vacant spaces, including empty storefronts, and many more plans to do fun stuff like that in the future. I think that's. And public relations, we've done coordinated marketing and collaborate closely with Julie Hollis-Terrell in our Visitors Bureau to make sure that the word gets out about arts activities in the broader Cache Valley area. And I think that one's it. Is that right? That's it. Okay. That's a little bit more about us. So any questions, thoughts, concerns about the areas or ideas for us? Feel free to talk to me offline as well.
You do an amazing job, Wendy. Thank
We have
you
a lot
for
of fun.
everything you bring to our community.
Thank you for what you do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wendy, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying something. How long have you had this designation?
We have had the designation since 2010. Before we had it, our tenant organization, the Alliance for the Varied Arts, had it. When they merged their programming with us in 2010, we took over the designation. They had it in our space back to 1993, and before that, they had it for another 30 years when they were at the Whittier Center. So there's a long tradition of the programs we've inherited being involved in this work.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move to renew the designation of Cache Arts as a local arts agency.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Wendy.
And then I'll second.
Do I need to sign that? Okay. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the VOCA and VAWA grants. Sarah, is Sarah here?
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, County Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Sarah Owen. I'm the Victim Services Supervisor. Me and Andrew Crane are here tonight to talk about our program and then also our VOCA and VAWA grants that we have. Would you mind the next slide? I just wanted to talk quickly about Cache County Victim Services. Our mission is to provide compassionate and comprehensive support to victims of crime, abuse, or trauma. We are committed to defending the rights of the victims and empowering individuals by offering safe and inclusive environment where they can access resources, advocacy, counseling to help them navigate the healing process. Our goal is to ensure that all victims receive the care and support that they need in order to move forward with their lives in a positive and empowering way. Our goal in this division is to ensure that no victim is required to navigate the complexities of trauma, the legal proceedings, and life-altering decisions alone. Just a little bit of overview about our program. The Victim Services Division is funded by county funds, a state grant, and VOCA funding. So in 2023 to 25, we were awarded $200,000 under the VOCA grant and $75,000 from a state grant. We have requested the same amount this next grant cycle of $200,000 from VOCA and $75,000 from the state grant. There are 5 victim coordinators covering district court, justice, and juvenile courts. We have 1 executive assistant, and we support victims of crime through 911 to post-sentencing. Would you mind that? That starts with our mobile services. There are 2 victim coordinators who are on call 365 days, 24 hours a day. We're there to respond on scene to help victims of crime through this criminal justice process immediately after an incident has happened. We help with crisis intervention, safety planning, emergency shelter services, and we make sure that they're connected to the community resources. We're a part of the CART team, which is the Child Abduction Response Team, where we help support the families that are going through a situation where their child might be missing or abducted. We support a family assistance center. When there are large-scale, like mass casualty incidences, we support a family assistance center that helps with our law enforcement and helps with our victims of these scenarios that we work with. The other side of it is the criminal justice process. We help victims of crime navigate the complexities of the criminal justice system. We make sure that they are informed about the criminal justice process, their rights, that they are able to submit victim impact statements, restitution requests. We make sure that they know their reparation options through the Utah Office of Victims of Crime. We also make sure that we're referring to our community resources. We've got great community resources here in Cache Valley, and we want to make sure that victims understand that they know what their resource options are. We also do crisis intervention, safety planning, and we work in the court proceedings. We attend court hearings weekly, making sure that they understand what's happening in the court proceedings, working with our prosecutors to make sure victims are understanding what's going on pre and post those hearings. Some of the statistics that we have to gather for our federal reporting, we have to report these stats quarterly. Also, reporting to our governing body twice a fiscal year is a part of our requirements as well. We have to report who the primary and secondary victims are. What type of victimization have they experienced? Adult sexual assault, aggravated assault, arson, burglary, child abuse, stalking. You can see the gambit of crimes that we work with. We have to report what the age of the victims are, the gender, the race and ethnicity, and what victim services were provided. We have a stat sheet that every victim coordinator goes through, and we mark down everything that we do with that victim through every single case that we work through. Just a few updates I wanted to talk to you guys about is that we have revamped many of the forms that we send victims. We make sure that we send them a letter from the county attorney's office that talks to them about the crime, their rights. We go through their victim impact statement, the restitution request, and what type of communication they want to have from us. We're implementing needs assessments where we're going to be making sure that we have more active and engaged conversations with victims about what their actual needs are within the community. Do they have shelter? Do they have food? What are their needs? And we want to be more direct with those questionings that we work with them on. We're going to be doing surveys that are going to measure our effectiveness of the program. We're going to be sending them to every case that we do. At the conclusion of every case, we're going to be making sure that we send them surveys so that we can understand the effectiveness of the county attorney's office and victim services so that we can be more effective in our programming and more effective in making sure that we are helping these victims through this process. We've been refreshing community partner relationships. I think we've done a really great job of making sure we understand the resources in our community, that we can make sure we can refer victims to every possible resource. We've been meeting with several, and we've got plenty more to go, but I think it's been a great opportunity to work with our local community partners. I think that's all mine. So that's just a little bit about victim services, about some of our grants that we're applying for. We should hear back from them around about May time. And so we'll be back for another report in those. But I want to see if you have any questions or anything about our program. Yes.
I know this is hard because this is kind of like asking you to have a crystal ball. What do you foresee, or the trend that you foresee with funding from the state?
I think that's a hard part. I don't have a crystal ball at this time. I mean, I think there's been a lot of whisperings about things. I think there's been some steady decline in some of the VOCA funding. So I think we're potentially on track for that, for some of this funding to dwindle. I just don't know when.
Provided by the state or federal?
So VOCA is provided by federal. Yep, so that is administered through the Utah Office of Victims of Crime. They're the ones who manage and then administer the funds out to us recipients who are applying for that funding. So yeah, we're just an application. We've applied for that funding, and we're kind of just gonna have to see. But I think that's a possible trend that's coming along, but I just don't know.
Madam Vice Chair, if I could opine as well. In the conversations that I've had with UOVC, the clear trend is that these types of grants are decreasing. They've cut grants all across the state for the last decade, and most of these grants are funded by reparations payments made by inmates, and those are fewer and fewer of those are being imposed by courts for whatever reason, and so these grants are they're on the decline, and so as time goes on, more of this burden is likely going to be placed on local governments. Currently, victim services is less than 1% of the county's budget. So, and this grant, the $275,000, represents about 0.2% of the county's budget. So it would be an increase, but not a massive increase if this grant were to go away completely. But that's not what we foresee right now.
Thank you.
And it was just a few years ago, I'm sorry, I don't recall the timeline. It was just a few years ago when the state of Utah implemented the state grant as well. So that's the one that we're applying for the $75,000. So I guess that's ultimately up to our state legislator as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all that you do. I know that it is additional tracking and additional work on you and your staff's part for applying for that and doing the requirements that you need to qualify. So thank you for all that you do to qualify for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Well, as Sarah mentioned, part of our requirements for the grant is to do presentations to the governing bodies, so that's why we're here today going over this. And just to touch base briefly on the VAWA grant, go through a little bit here as well. You can see that's the mission statement for the county attorney's office. I'm not going to read that point by point. You can read that, but essentially what it comes
state your name.
Sorry, Andrew Crane. My apologies. Yep.
Just for the record.
Thank you. Yeah, basically we're here to vigorously prosecute the guilty, seek justice for the innocent, and uphold and defend the constitutions under Utah and the federal constitution. That's why we're here, and that's why we do that. So you can do the next slide. As far as the VAWA specifically goes, this one is a federal grant that we've applied for and received in the past. Currently, what we have going on, there are 3 prosecutors that are covered by this grant, and basically have 1 in each courtroom that handles and focuses on victims of felony and misdemeanor crimes that involve domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and protective order violations. And that's what their focus is on. And additionally, under the grant, we have two special prosecutors as well that assist those special investigators, excuse me, that assist the prosecutors in doing any sort of case follow-up that is needed for those particular types of cases. Can we do the next one? As far as the current award that we're on right now, the award years going back 2 years now, the total we asked and received was just over $400,000. Like Sarah mentioned before, there's some reporting that goes along with that we have to do as for the VAWA grant that we report to UOVC, and then there's an annual report that we report to the feds as well. The attorneys have to track their hours that they spend on the VAWA cases, same with the investigators. As part of the grants, we are subject to UOVC monitoring, essentially, where they can do some desk reviews, they review our documents, records, things like that, and we have to abide by the grant conditions. So that's just a brief summary of that. So, as far as what's going on for what we've applied for the next cycle for 2025 to 2027. Basically, we've submitted for the same thing, similar to what Sarah had mentioned. We've asked for the same amount. Again, none of this is guaranteed. Those same conditions that we're currently under will apply as well. We submitted the application for that in March. They will have until May to review all the applications from different agencies around the state. And then if we are awarded, we should get that notification sometime in the beginning of June. And if we have any revisions or questions for us, we'll go through that process in June, finalize, and then if we're approved, we'll start again this coming July. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, happy to help where I can.
So the grant that you're applying for the 2025, 2027 year, you say you're doing that in July? You'll know by July whether you receive that?
We should know by June if we're going to get it. So they'll do hey, it looks like you're awarded this. We have some questions for it. May need you to revise some few things. So we'll have through June to work through those, any revisions if needed. And then it'll start up again in July if we get it. So.
Anybody else have any questions for Andrew or anything?
Yeah, if you don't get that, what's plan B?
Like Taylor mentioned, I think it'd be up to essentially, I don't know I'm not the budget guru when it comes to the attorney's office, but I don't think it represents a huge % of the county attorney's budget, but it would be a little bit of a hit. I don't know if you want to speak any of that on.
Ultimately, the decision would be on our legislative body of what they want to fund, and without these grants, if we decided not to fund those, there would be significant service cuts, and we would not be able to have dedicated special victims prosecutors anymore, which would be a huge challenge because these types of cases, they're not your general run-of-the-mill DUI where they're settled and dealt with effectively in one day. These are the ones that take a huge amount of time, a lot of focus, and are the real stinkers that generally go to trial, or more often go to trial. I will plug for Sarah and Andrew. They've been handling these particular grants for Andrew for just over a year.
Over a year now.
I believe, and Sarah has been handling these grants for 7-8 months now. And the grants are in better shape than they ever have been before. The numbers are more correctly tracked. The reporting is much better. And UOVC is very pleased with how far we've come in our progress of how we're reporting and tracking with these grants. So I just want to just do a shout out for Andrew and Sarah and their good work in getting these grants back up to scratch.
Is that what they look for on their end when they're evaluating if they want to issue that grant? Is that you've been following the reporting requirements and those sorts of things?
My understanding is it's a factor, but it's not end all be all. A lot of it's going to come down to funding, who applies, and a lot of things outside our control, but that's a potential factor.
You're doing all you can, it sounds like. Yeah.
The best I can, know how. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, Bryson, it's time for that map.
Alrighty. So, as you guys may know, we've been working on the fire district. I feel like the entire county has been working on the fire district. And this is our last step before I send it to the Lieutenant Governor's office. So this is the current boundary of the fire district. The legal description says basically all unincorporated counties and all the cities except for Logan. By your approval, we then will have to have Sandy sign the Mylar, and then we'll send it over to the Lieutenant Governor's office to make the fire district more complete. This should have been done back in 65. But the clerk back then never got the map delivered. So we're now delivering the map, so.
Have we had any towns incorporate since 65?
No. So that's what I was wondering about, for example, like Cornish, but I had the petitions right here from every single incorporated city, and all the ones that we have incorporated now were incorporated then.
Some of their boundaries have changed, though.
Yeah, boundaries have changed, annexations, right? Population has definitely changed, but yeah, we have the original petition, we just needed the map to get sent.
So everything's included except for the dark.
Yep, and that's Logan City's boundaries.
You sure you don't want to pay for it?
Does anybody have any questions for Bryson about this map? I'm happy to get this step done
Yeah.
so that we can keep moving forward with our fire
Thank you.
district. Yeah, thank you. Okay. I'll sign it at the end.
Yes, I do need a council vote,
Oh, we do need a council vote to accept it.
though. Accept it.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to accept the map that's been
Can I ask one
presented.
question first?
You sure can.
So with what's going on with Powder Mountain and that we are going to have them do the fire service on that, does that affect this map in any way? Or what do we know about that?
I think that's something we could direct to Chief Hammer.
Yeah. He's on his way.
I can answer that. We're still negotiating with Weber. Having them annex was one option, but it's not the option that we've been directed to pursue. What we'd prefer to do instead is to pay them for that service rather than change the boundaries of the district.
They would contract with the fire district.
Correct.
Yeah, the fire district would contract with Weber Fire District.
Yes.
Okay, that helps me understand that part.
Okay. Anybody else? Is someone ready to make a motion to
I
accept?
move to accept the Cache County Fire Board plat map.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you, Bryson.
Can I have those agreements so I can give them to
Yes,
Wendy?
done. Okay, it's time to set public hearings. Anyone want to make a motion to take care of those?
I would so move. I would move that we set the public hearing for ordinance 2025-11 on April 8th, 2025 for the Tanner and Nicole Godfrey rezone. And also on April 8th, 2025, the ordinance 2025-12 rezone CS rezone. Approximately about 5:30.
Okay.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we set those public hearings. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right, pending action. Ordinance 8A, 2025-09, the Willits RU5 rezone. Angie, are you gonna?
Angie Zetterquist with Development Services. As a reminder, this was a request to rezone 18.71 acres from the agricultural A10 to the RU5 zone. A public hearing was held a couple weeks ago. A motion was not made, so it was extended to this meeting. I don't have any new updates. Again, as a reminder, the Planning Commission recommended denial by a 6-0 vote during their February 6th meeting, based on the findings of fact that it was unclear if the provided UDOT permit supports the construction of more than 2 homes. The nearest area in the county, that is the RU5, is located a mile away. It's not consistent with the general plan, and the parcel had no road frontage. Just one update on number 1 findings. And I think we may have mentioned it during the last meeting, but UDOT did confirm that they have an approval for, I think it's up to 6 to 10 homes without having to go back to UDOT, but it would support the request for the rezone.
Okay. All right, thank you, Angie. All right, I know all of you have received some information about that. I don't know, does anyone want to discuss it? Does someone want to make a motion?
Sandy, just so you're aware, the applicant is here if you guys have any questions.
Anyone has questions for the applicant? They are here to answer those.
I have no questions. I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I read through the minutes and everything else on that. I was at the planning and zoning when this happened. I very much want to support the planning and zoning. I think they vetted the issues very, very well. I know there's been more information as far as UDOT goes, but I also think there are some things that are still not clear as to why this stands and still needs to be denied and according to the planning and zoning. If you read some of the letters that were put in from Wellsville City, also from some citizens, they've got some strong points there. I have reached out to some other citizens, and I think there's some things that still need to be vetted on this. And so I will go ahead and make a motion that we follow the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommend denial for the Willits RU5 rezone.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we deny the motion to, for the Willits rezone. Is there any discussion, any further discussion?
I just want to know if anyone counted how many people spoke against versus in favor from the last meeting. Did we get I want to say it was like a dozen that spoke against that.
Yeah, I think that's close.
Oh.
Okay, those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, 2025-09, the county budget calendar. Wes, Matt, who's going to handle that? That was a crowd pleaser.
We're doing the calendar, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, opening the budget, opening
Opening the budget.
Opening the budget.
Opening the budget, sorry.
Why don't we?
I got confused again.
No, you're good. So,
Okay.
just to follow up from the meeting on March 11th, we have opened the budget. We're essentially requesting $377,025 in new funding, 1.37 million in PO rollovers, which would be impact funding as well. And we've had some discussion, Sandy, about that separately. The ARPA has been discussed. Those are essentially the amendments 59 through 76. General fund tax admin allocation, minor amount. So most of the more significant amounts in the second section that are outside of the general fund really relate to your COGS fund, to your restaurant, your wraps. I've put together a schedule here so you can kind of see the different funds that some of those are coming out of. We did move the ARPA-related funding into its own fund, and we'll recognize the revenue as the projects are completed.
Okay.
Just in Fund 268 alone, we've got 14.7 million in requests, in committed monies that we've got in POs. I think a lot of the way we can address this so that we're just looking at new items next year is by making sure that departments are including those POs in their budget requests, or that we budget for our open space fund, COGS, restaurant, and wraps. If we'll budget for those amounts, it doesn't mean we're committing them to a certain project necessarily as we accept the budget, but it also will make it so we don't have to come here the first quarter and request those monies either. That'll clear that up.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you. I met with Wes and Matt, and we went over quite a bit of this and talked about the process, and I feel very comfortable with what we were presented. So, anybody else have any questions for Wes? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Resolution 2025-07, opening the 2025 budget.
Okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to 9A, ordinance 2025-07. Are you going to talk about that, Taylor?
Yes, well, Andrew.
Andrew's going to take.
Jairus originally was going to, but he couldn't make it, so I stepped in anyway. So the background for this ordinance is it essentially designates the county clerk as the chief administrative officer, and it's for only the purposes of privacy, like privacy program management, as well as record management, if I recall correctly. And so the reason why this designation is necessary is there's a bill that was passed by the legislature this last legislative session, HB 444. Essentially, it requires counties to designate a chief administrative officer for those purposes. And in order to move forward on complying with a bunch of other parts of state law, including the mandate for a privacy program for the county, we have to have someone designated as the CAO, but that designation doesn't take away anyone else's administrative duties or powers. It says specifically in the ordinance. But as a result, this will also affect the grandma appeal process. So instead of an appeal going to the county executive, it will now go to Bryson instead of originating with Bryson, then getting appealed to the county executive, if that makes any sense. But yeah, that's more or less it. It's just administrative housekeeping so that we can comply with certain parts of state law.
Yeah, in that state law, it lists several duties that the administrative officer does.
Yep.
And they all are already being done by our county clerk.
Yep.
So that was a
Yes.
easy fit to make that change. Okay.
Taylor, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add was what our Madam Chair said was that most of these duties, just to give you an idea, establishing under Utah Code 63A 12103, it outlines what the responsibilities are of the chief administrative officer. Those duties are establish and maintain a program for the management of the county's records, appoint one or more records officers whose primary duty is to handle records, ensure that the relevant employees of the county receive required training regarding records, cooperating with the state archivist on surveys, submitting records of schedules of records to the state, complying with the rules of the Department of Government Operations, reporting to state archives. All these things are things that Bryson does. And so complying with this new bill, HB 444, it just makes sense to designate that chief administrative officer of records as the person who already does all of our records, the county clerk.
And it also, in the very end of that new law, it designates that Bryson could designate someone else as an appeals officer if he felt there was any conflict of interest, or that can also be done.
State
as
law
well.
under 63G2 401 Part 9, it does permit the chief administrative officer to delegate that duty if he feels it's necessary. So there is the safety valve if someone feels like Bryson, for whatever reason, can't make a determination on an appeal for a specific record. So there is that.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions for either Taylor or Andrew about that resolution? I would entertain a motion
I
for
would
that.
move to suspend the rules and pass ordinance 2025-07, designating county clerk as the chief administrative officer for the privacy and record management purposes.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. All right, 2025-09, the budget calendar. That's where I thought we were going. I don't know.
If you have a copy, Andrew, you can just pull up. So we did have our budget kickoff meeting in which we trained staff over the different documents that they would need to complete in order to submit their budget requests for this budget year 2026. Do you have a copy of the calendar? We can just kind of maybe briefly walk through. So I'm asking the council to adopt this calendar. I've kind of put in bold maybe some of the more significant dates. And again, the dates in the calendar, it's meant to set a timeline and a process to complete the budget and submit it. You'll notice March 11th, which we're working on adopting that today. So we've gone through and produced the calendar, and we're presenting it to you to adopt. On March 20th, we've got some different documents there that, again, we're trying to operationalize your goals. And what's that?
Operationalize.
It means your goals that you set, we'll try to put into it somehow financially.
Like it.
So,
Big word.
Make our wildest dreams come true. Is what he means.
Take
so
him.
budget instructions distributed to department directors and staff. And so we've gone through and we've held that meeting for the 20th. Andrew, if you can just zoom out maybe just a little bit. I'm not going to necessarily walk through every date, but you'll see June 15th. I've also included on May 13th, County Council presentation and review of fire district study. We are moving along with the fire district study. We've submitted capital to Susie Becker, and I'll be following up with her this week just to see where we are as far as presenting that to the fire district. But kind of the ones, again, I've put in kind of some code. Understand that there's, certain dates that are by statute. We're going to be meeting with departments June 18th through the 30th to conduct budget reviews with county staff, look over their manpower requests, operating capital requests. Go ahead and keep scrolling. Initially, I've set that in August we would do some presentations to the council. We'll probably have one meeting that goes over capital, the other meeting that will go over personnel and operating accounts. And the 26th will be kind of your first chance to kind of give us some feedback on the budget. On September 9th, we're asking, technically the executive has until the 1st of November to submit the tentative budget, but according to the Utah Code 173610, but we're asking that he submits it to you as a council on September 9th. That'll allow us time to make a decision of whether to send out a mailing or not altogether. It could save the county 30 to 40,000 in just, if we're not doing a tax increase, there's no need to send out a mailing. And again, essentially September 1st through the 30th. If you would like department heads to provide more information on their budget so you can gain some more understanding, we do have up until that second meeting in September to give Craig the instruction on whether to send a notice out or not. The first meeting in October doesn't fall until after October 10th. And so October 10th is his last day to essentially get it out to the printer. And so just with the way the dates are falling this year, that second meeting in September is when you'll need to give us some instruction on sending out a notice. At the same time, it's just the notice that you're making a decision on at that point in time. You can still, through September through December, go through the budget in more detail as you desire. Any questions?
Thank you for putting this all into a calendar, Wes. It's going to make it so much easier to meet those deadlines and have everybody understand the expectations of having information so that the council can do our job. So,
Well, and it allows us, having that hard deadline of June 15th allows us as finance some time to organize the information, and then instead of having a revolving door, it's here's the information that we have for the next year. And this process, it is a learning process. So I understand departments will be learning as we go through this process that, you know, it's maybe a little different than they've experienced in the past.
But you met with all of them already in March.
Yeah, so we had our kickoff and went through all the different documents, provided them instructions, provided them video of how to fill out each form.
Yep, I was there. It was very detailed. I think it is a great way to start it off, so.
Awesome.
I like that everything is done before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of the calendar.
Yeah. Perfect.
Wes, so this is earlier than it has been in the past. It's June 15th, so that's, you know, a few months earlier, a little bit. Did you push back from staff for that?
No, not, I mean, I've heard some comments. It is early. I think keep in mind, you know, part of what I talked to him about in the meeting, in the kickoff meeting, is during April and May, my staff will be spending quite a bit of time with the departments to walk them through this new process so they're not trying to figure it out on their own. And then, again, the 23rd, I think it's the 23rd, the second meeting in September, you just need to decide whether you're going to do a tax increase or not. That doesn't mean that we can't go into September, October, November if we need to make some changes to the budget.
If I could just add a comment to that statement that you just made, Councilmember Buse. I would just say that it's important that the council recognize that it is very early, so everything's very preliminary. And to be able to have numbers, estimates, costs more than 6 months before a budget is to go into effect is very early. So I think there just needs to be a level of understanding that it will change after that. That's not final. It's not even close to final at that point. And everyone just needs to be on the same page about the fact that it's not done yet.
So just as a follow-up with that, I think the frustration with the 2025 budget was we started having the departments come and present their budget and their requests to the council, and they give us their documents, and then, you know, at the end of October, we get a document that was quite different. I mean, not some tweaks, but it was by large amounts different. And that was really frustrating for us to really get a grasp of what their true need was, because they presented one thing and that was what we were working on, but then months later we were getting something wholly different. And so for us to be able to really see what the needs are, to look at what we're going to do for a tax assessment or not, that I understand we need to have some flexibility, and maybe that's what we look at with some of our budget openings, because we are doing this quite early. I don't know, and maybe that's a conversation we open up for the group to look at, but, yeah, I feel like that made the process really difficult for me. Speaking for myself, I'm not gonna speak on behalf of the council, but that made the process really difficult for me to actually understand what the needs were for many of the departments by receiving very different documents, just because they were a couple months apart. And I know it was difficult for staff. Some of the staff in the finance department expressed the same frustrations, as that they would have different departments
Information
coming
that
in
changed.
and getting coerced or whatever to get these changes made. So I'm really happy that we're doing the education piece now, with the expectations being set that we really want as close as we possibly can get. And I like that we're doing some planning about what our, what was the word that we?
Capital needs too.
Yeah, our capital needs and our goals. I love that word that we made up. But
Operationalize.
operationalize our goals so that we can get, those aren't going, there's, hopefully, we're not gonna have as many unexpected changes, I think. If we're planning out and putting these plans into place, we'll be able to anticipate more of the expenses as they're coming. So,
And we just want the departments to do, the best they can possibly, start to reach out and get pricing. And does that mean they have to consider what the cost of that product they're requesting maybe a year down the road might cost? Sure. I anticipate too we'll be, involved with the executive in those meetings after the information has been submitted. Those interviews between middle and end of June, I'd imagine David and Dirk would be involved in those. Maybe Sandy, you might be involved. Anyway, so any other questions on the calendar?
I'll ask another question if I may. I see we have Amy here, who's our human resources, our Department of Personnel Management. So much of our expense is related to what you are working on with our personnel and getting our insurance negotiated. This year will be different because we did have, with the switch to PHP, we were able to negotiate a fixed increase for this year. So this year will be kind of an anomaly because you won't have to go out and get bids, right? But also that, which is hard and time consuming because you're out speaking to and getting bids with our broker. But also I imagine it would be difficult for you to get the other piece of that, which is the cost with increases and adjustments related to market analysis. Yeah. I just want to make sure we can kind of get as winning of a budget, as much of a budget as we can, as early as we can without, because I think we were kind of trying to move some of those things late, and not blaming you, a lot of it was us as well.
Sure. Yeah, so this year, you're right. We are with PHP. We have a 2-year lock-in. I've already let Wes know that. He's already able to work that into the budget. We don't have to go out to bid. We're good for this year. I believe it was between 7 and 8% increase. I don't remember the exact point, whatever it was. So that one we're going to be good this year, right? That's generally something that we're waiting on and we're not receiving until the middle of September. So next year in the budget cycle, should we choose to be going out to bid or trying to get numbers back from PHP to see, if we're staying with them, that could be what's pushing us off as well. But we could have a good guesstimate to be able to work off of. As far as compensation, you're correct. A lot of my market studies and surveys, I don't receive back until August. Last year, I went through and did some aging on the market information because I didn't have the information that I needed in time. And so this year I may need to do that as well. Just know that I'm trying to get it as accurate as I can, but there may be some catch up based off of surveys that came in later and different things that way. So.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we all recognize that there'll be some things that change, you know, that we have to be flexible. But I really like, Wes, the way that you have split out, like, the capital expenditures and the personnel. If someone's going to ask for a large capital expenditure for the next year, they'll know by June what they need. And if they're going to ask for a new, you know, a new employee position, they'll know that as well. And so those things will be, you know, we can kind of make those finite unless there's some emergency or something that happened. And so some of these other things we can guesstimate and then be flexible on, but I think that splitting those out like that is going to make it easier for us to look forward. So thank you.
Yep.
If I may, sorry, I have so many questions, Madam Chair.
Please.
And this is kind of just directed towards the executive. We have September 9th as when we are requesting that the executive submits a formal budget to us. And I guess we just have to do that with good faith, since statutorily we have no obligation to request that from you until November 1st. I mean, I just want to see how we can.
Yeah, we're happy to do that, just with the understanding that it's not done yet.
Yeah, that it will be as good as it can be as of September 9th.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a lot changed after that, I would
Yeah,
think.
after September, hopefully we're close to nailing.
Yeah, between June and September, I can see things that are solidified, but after September, I would think hopefully we're pretty close to having the numbers we need.
And I sat down with Dirk and kind of went through the calendar with him at one point. It's been probably 3 weeks. But I imagine we're going to have, you know, you're going to be involved in those meetings in June to sit down with the different departments and go through their requests. And so, you know, I anticipate that, you know, we'll be working closely together, David, on this process. Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was going to ask, Wes, how long has it been that you've been in this role?
Since May last year.
Not quite a year. So this will be the first full cycle under the current approach, and I just wanted to compliment you on stepping in mid-cycle last year and doing such a great job with you and your staff. And then I look forward to the additional support that will come now with Matt coming in and this fresh set of eyes. And I think things are going really well.
And we hope it's a much more precise and easy to understand process this next year.
Great. Okay. Anybody else have questions for Wes? Keegan?
My comment was kind of along those lines of, now that we have an auditor, how does that play into it? I don't know that I saw a specific line item for that, or even there should be, but I imagine there's an opportunity where we have a chance to review the findings of the auditor and how that plays into the budget next year.
So I think a lot of what the auditor will present will come through the audit committee. And I don't necessarily want to speak for Matt, but you know, any internal audits or those type of functions would go through the audit committee. But at the same time, he's pretty involved in, you know, we have quite a bit of communication back and forth. You want to speak to it?
I would just say it's a team approach. Wes is obviously the finance director and heavily involved in that budget, but to the extent possible, I'll do as much lifting as I can there, and I think we'll be able to meet those goals.
Okay, great. Anybody
Thanks,
else have any other comments or questions for Wes and Matt? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I think I'm fine to suspend the rules and to move to adopt Resolution 2025-09, adopting the Cache County fiscal year 2026 budget calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay.
It's interesting, on the council 10 years, and this is like the 4th or 5th calendar that I've seen. It doesn't mean anything unless it becomes a little more hardened. That we, you know, as soon as we start talking, well, maybe, then it really becomes worthless. So we need to try, if you're going to adopt them, I think we need to try harder to make them a little more determined.
To follow up on that question, who's the sole enforcer of that calendar? Who's the biggest champion of it? Is that you? Or
so come June 15th, we will essentially We've got all these documents in Google Drive to the departments, so they have a folder for each of their individual departments, and we'll, come June 15th, that's their last day, we'll go ahead and lock that down. You know, does that mean that there won't be maybe some pricing changes that we don't foresee? Sure. There's always a few minor changes, but it is important that we kind of have that hard deadline as much as possible, just so we don't have, you know, with the last years, we had stuff that changed every council meeting that we were presenting to you. So I'm trying to get away from that. You know, this worked very well where I've worked previously. The departments got used to it. They liked the process. They knew when they submitted information that, you know, their requests would be considered. So I think it's a really good approach. I think you'll be satisfied with it in the long term.
I don't think it's wholly unreasonable to expect a large organization to forecast 2 to 4 quarters ahead of time. I think that's pretty standard.
And to answer your question, Keegan, the ultimate enforcer is us. Like, that's our biggest responsibility as a council, is to manage this budget with really professional help. But when it really comes down to it, it's us that will be the ones who make sure that those things are met. And so.
Thank you.
We'll do our best. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the budget count, the fiscal year 2026 budget calendar. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Amy, are you next? The Personnel Policy and Procedure Manual.
Good evening, Amy Adams, Director of Personnel Management. Before you and in your media packet, we have Resolution 2025-10. This is looking at our work periods for our firefighters. We found and were audited from the Utah Retirement System about 6 months ago that we needed to change our 212 work period to 106 hours work period, which we did do at the time of that finding. However, as I was going through the personnel policy and procedures, I realized that that hadn't been changed here in policy. So what this resolution is doing is finding all of those where it says 212 or a 28-day work period and changing that to 106 hours in 14 days. So that's what you have before you for that resolution. Any questions?
Anybody have questions for Amy?
I move to suspend the rules and approve Resolution 2025-10 as stated there.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we suspend the rules and accept Resolution 2025-10. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the next one's you too.
It is.
There's 2 more.
On a roll.
I know, right? So Resolution 2025-11 has to do with Section 7 and with our compensation plan. The first part is just a grammatical change to make it read better. And then there's a few changes in there where it refers to the Director of Human Resources, changing that to the Director of Personnel Management. One of the biggest changes is going to be on Section C under reclassification, adding in through that second sentence, the reclassification of a position must be justified based on substantial change in duties and responsibilities, meeting the required licensure and certification, education and experience, and skills of the higher classification level. And then as we look at number 3, just changing that to position reclassification so that that's reading better. And then also saying position reclassification is subject to budgetary limitations and must be approved by the Director of Personnel Management and the elected official. So whichever elected official is over that position. And then number 4, upon reclassification, if a pay increase is granted, the employee would not be subject to the 6-month orientation period and is eligible for the next annual increase. Those are just grammatical, making it read better. On the next section, D, compensation administration, is the change there rather than wage and salary, changing the Director of Human Resources to Personnel Management, and then some grammatical changes there to make it read better. On number 4 there, it says it has a A, B, and a C. A is being added. I'll read this section so that it makes sense. The Director of Personnel Management and the Compensation Committee shall make a combined recommendation to the county executive, which shall include A, a cost of living adjustment based on the current economic conditions, B, a recommended wage salary adjustment for merit and market increases, and C, a recommended benefits program. So A would be your addition, and then B and C have been renumbered there. On number 5, it reads, the county executive shall consider these recommendations as department budgets as department budgets are developed for the next calendar year, adding and considering the recommendations in the tentative budget. Number 6 is just some grammatical changes to make it read better. On section E, changing that to say merit and market increases, adding the and market because it did include that section. You'll see in the first paragraph that there's a red line there. That's moving that section below number 6. It looks like on this copy those numbers are a little bit off, so that would need to be changed as we add this into the personnel policy and procedures. But for reference, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. On number 4, we're adding the merit increase applies to all employees except for the sheriff's office, and that is because the sheriff's office has their own market or step and grade system that includes that merit increase there. And that's not actually an addition. I believe it's been moved from the top paragraph. So just moving that sentence to what you see as number 4, but I believe is a number 1 in the Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual. Then there on number 5, it says a merit increase is recommended after the performance appraisal is submitted to Personnel Management. Taking away the appraisal form, we don't do it as a paper form anymore. It's done through an online service through our HRIS system. And then just making that change in the title there. Also then another grammatical change. And then at the very end, adding the red sentence from up above in the first paragraph to the bottom that defines a market increase. Are there any questions?
Anybody have questions for Amy about this? This went through OMP, correct?
Yeah, this did go through OMP.
Hit it pretty hard there, but it's recommended 3-0.
All right, I would entertain a motion on that.
So moved. Oh,
You have to
suspend the rules and move that we adopt Resolution 2025-11.
I'll second it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, got one more, Amy.
I do. So this next one is Resolution 2025-12. This came about after a discussion that I had with the attorneys wondering if I could make corrections to grammar, formatting, spacing, and numbering, things that wouldn't affect what the actual policy was. And then the next thing I knew, this came and they said, how about this? And I said, okay, sounds great. So this is just in the very first part of section 1.1, adding to the end, furthermore, the Director of Personnel Management is authorized to make non-substantive changes to this policy, including corrections to grammar, formatting, spacing, and numbering, without having to present such minor changes to the County Council for approval. So I want to assure you that in doing this, that would be the only types of changes that I would be changing. It would not be anything that would change a meaning or even words that would could possibly change what that policy is saying that you have already approved. So.
Right. Any questions for Amy about that?
Yeah. To cover you on any, even if it's grammatic, whatever it may be, you probably ought to, somewhere we probably ought to have it to where that it either goes to the attorney's office, something like that, so that, a comma can kill.
Definitely. I think that's a really great idea.
Just some little review or some process
Yeah.
in there, just
Double check for
to say,
yourself.
hey, that it wasn't just you, just,
Do we want to add that to this
I think,
as
yeah.
approved by the attorney's office?
I hate to make more redundant work, but even at that, just so that, hey, when did that change come about? What was going on
Yeah,
here?
I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
I want you to know that I do have a changes document, so any changes that are made, I do keep track of those. So this would be part of those changes as well, so that we would know what date those were made. But I do like the suggestion to have the attorney's office review that, because a comma can't kill.
And just on that point, when a change is made, there will be notifications to those affected by the change. And so-
Yes,
so
but
there will be a chance to review, if you will, before it's really in practice.
Yeah, if it's anything that's substantive, it would come to OMP and then come to you.
Right, but I'm talking, anytime you change it, the
Yeah.
people enforcing it or need to follow it need to
Yes,
know.
we do update the master copy and it's sent out.
For informative purposes, not necessarily
Correct.
approval purposes, yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, Dave, are you suggesting adding that verbiage
I am.
and into it and
Did you make a
approving it?
motion with that amendment?
Boy, how do we add that verbiage?
I could add it and bring it back next time if you would prefer that.
Just add a sentence that would, just.
Let's do that.
again, that would cover you, and then, that, hey, yes, I had someone else look at those grammatic things, whatever, just so that someone doesn't come barking at you.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll just continue that then. Next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Okay, next on our agenda is the discussion of a formation of a study committee. As prescribed in UCA 17-52A-3. I don't know if we brought it up last time, and I don't know if everyone's had a chance to think about that. If you want to give your opinion, I think that we need to actually take a formal poll and see what council members think about doing that, so that we can do it in a way that's, that we're on the right page. So, does anyone want to start out and talk about what they think?
Yeah, Cindy, will you review the timeline of that again?
Yes. If we authorize a study committee now, we'll get on it right away. It would be 2 members that are appointed by the council, and there'll be 3 members that are appointed by the COG. So it would be a 5-member committee. They would start to meet right away. They could hold public hearings. They can gather information from other counties. They can gather information from us. And they would bring a recommendation back to the council before the end of December, so before our last meeting in December. And then we would vote to accept that recommendation, take it to our voters. It would be on the ballot in November of 2026. And so if that recommendation included a change to our form of government, then we would have to set up some structure for the people who file to run in 2026, who would be on the 2026 ballot. And so we'd have to deal with that at the time.
Is there prescribed procedure for the committee?
There is, it's in the state code.
Okay, so
It's
they have.
outlined in the state
There's
code.
certain things they have to do.
Yes.
In their due
And
process.
I sent a text to all the council members. One of the things that we worried about the most was if we took a recommendation to the voters and they said no, that we would revert to a 3-member council. That is not correct. We would be asking the voters to amend our Organic Act. If they voted not to do that, our Organic Act would stay as is, unamended. And so that would be
The status
the
quo.
default. It would
Yeah.
default to the status quo.
There's some public hearings that are required along the way too, right?
Yeah.
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 That's set up in the state code, yeah.
It's outlined in state code. And we could also, there are certain things that are required, but we can add to that. If we said we want you to.
More outreach,
More
more
outreach.
public.
I think the more the better.
And just to review the 4 different types of government allowable under a county of our class, there's the current one we have, which is a council executive. There's a council manager option, and a commission, a 3-member commission, then an expanded commission that can be
5 or 7.
and a commissioner is legislator and has a legislative and executive role, correct? So the way this would play out is the committee would study it and make a recommendation, either stay with what you have or we recommend one of the other three. Then we would put that to the voters in Cache County. That would be on the November 2026 ballot, and they would say yes or no, and it would pass with a simple majority.
Yep. And it would take effect in January of 2029.
Because you'd have to vote for the potentially elected people in 2027?
They would start their term 2027, so they'd serve for 2 years rather than 4. If there was a change to that would only affect the executive, unless they recommended that we go to a commission. But because the new law that passed this year said that any county that has districts, that has a council, if it's a council, they have to be in districts, and we are. So we are already in compliance with that law. There were a couple of counties that had some at-large council members, and they had to regroup and kind of put those into districts. We don't have to worry about that. I think we've got some really good districts set up.
Sandy, for the committee, just so I'm clear, 2 members are to be from the council.
We can either have it be from the council, or we can appoint.
Okay, and then the other 3 members have to come from COG?
Or they can appoint.
Or we can appoint, say, could we appoint someone from outside of our jurisdiction to be on the committee?
The 2 that we have control of, yes, as a council. The COG would have control over the 3 members that they appoint to that committee.
Are you asking if they can live outside of the county?
Like somebody from UAC, like a staff member of UAC or something.
Or maybe someone from another county.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is acceptable. I think that's kind of open to our interpretation. I can double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that we are just listed as the appointing authority, and we could either appoint ourselves, 2 of our own, which I don't know that I would, I don't think I would do that. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but I think we can really push to make it an unbiased committee. It would have to be completely unbiased.
Is there any compensation for committee members, totally voluntary?
Satisfaction.
There is something in the code that says if they have to, like if they had to go overnight somewhere or something, that they could be compensated. And so we'd have to really look at that as we set up that committee. I don't think there's necessity for that.
I didn't really think about that till Barbara
Barbara
mentioned someone outside the county that might have to travel.
Yeah, we could vote to cover their expenses if there are expenses. I don't anticipate there would be very many, or I just don't anticipate there would be expenses.
I am in favor of it. I think, especially since my biggest qualm was probably the idea of defaulting back to a 3-member commission. I think that there's plenty of outreach and information gathering in the study committee that would be getting really good input from our residents as well as experts, and interviewing those that have good knowledge of it. I think it would be, for the reasons that I've already stated previously in meeting, I think it would be really good to find the right form of government moving forward.
Anybody else want to say what they think? I feel, this was a hard decision and a hard thing that we all went through, but I just feel like I have a mantra that I try and live by, and it is, you should always consider that you may be wrong. And I really tried to look at it from every situation. And I believe with all my heart that I'm not wrong, that we need to look at this again and make a decision for our county. It was over 40 years ago when they made that decision about what form of government we have. Let's take a look at it. If it's still working and people feel like that could be the recommendation of the committee. And I'm totally open to that as well. But I think we started down that road. I think we should form the committee. That's my opinion. I don't know if anybody, David, do you want to give your opinion?
I'm in favor of forming the committee, looking at all the options. I really am. And I like the idea of us as a council, we reach out, and I don't think that I think there's a lot of good viewpoints outside of the council. So I think there'd be a lot of, good things that would come from it. So there may be ideas that what we see versus what they see could be very different. So I think it'd be good to have someone outside the council.
I'm in favor of forming the committee.
Okay. Keegan, what do you think?
Well, I'm wondering what kind of outreach we've done to gauge general interest before we escalate it to the next step. Personally, I feel like the work we've done is pretty minimal. I'm trying to reach out and kind of gauge what our constituents think. And of the work that I've done, I haven't really seen a groundswell of interest in this, if I'm just being honest. It does sort of feel like a solution, or a solution in search of a problem. So also maybe some personal bias. I served on a committee that evaluated in Logan City their form of election, how they do that, whether that's by district or at large. 5 of the 6 of the committee members made a recommendation, and it didn't go anywhere. So, not saying that would happen here, but I don't think we're under any obligation to uphold the recommendation of the committee. But I don't know that we're committed to doing that either.
It's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation, yeah. But I just think there's a lot more effort we could do to gauge feedback right now before we form a committee, so I don't know.
My thoughts are, if we don't form a committee, then how are we going to know what's going on or how people feel about it? That's my thought.
Good point, Barbara.
And I hope we have a better mechanism to hear from our constituents than forming committees, though. I think we have alternatives.
In the 2 weeks' time since we last met, I've had several conversations on this topic, and I've yet to hear from anyone who thought we needed to make a change. I've been as careful as one can be about not adding my bias in before receiving the individuals or the individual or the individuals. And I've yet to hear any support for making a change. Could just be, they on the spot, and so they hadn't had time to fully weigh everything, and maybe given some time, maybe the answer would be different. But I think the term I like, what I've heard is, there's no groundswell that I'm hearing. Only people I'm hearing talk about it is this group.
Wanna chime in?
I understand what's being said from all, and there's good points, but I can't believe that a committee isn't going to bring some points that we can consider that are new. And then also, as it's been pointed out, we can accept or deny the recommendation, is what's coming from there. But I understand what Keegan's saying, but at the same time, all of us are busy in what we're doing and being council members, let alone going out and reaching and saying, do we want to change that? So how we reach that, from what you're saying, is a good point, but I think a committee can bring some points to us, at least to bring some points to consider that we haven't thought of. So.
And I feel like something that Casey Snyder, our esteemed legislator, has said that sometimes I think that those that are the closest to the situation understand a little bit differently than what the general public would, and that it's our job to educate. And that's kind of where I feel about it. Like it's our job then to help to put our opinion out there, to hopefully other people that work in other counties can give an opinion, have public hearings. I think that, like Nolan said, I think there are things that could be brought to us that we didn't even consider. So,
And I want to say I totally agree with that point. It's always good to get perspective. I just wonder if we made a top 10 list of committees that we want to study issues. Like, would this really make my top 3? Is it a top 3 issue in the county right now? Is it a top 10 issue in the county right now? I have a hard time saying yes to that. I think our time would be better spent on other issues.
So if I am reading correctly, we've got 5 for the committee and 2 that would vote not to have the committee. Okay, I think that we're going to, in this instance, we're going to move forward with the majority, and we'll form that committee and see where we go. So thank you for all of your input and your opinions. I appreciate that.
May I add an opinion, Madam Chair?
Sure.
This is my perspective, having served in this role for 4.5 years. Most people have no idea what our form of government is. And that's not just our citizens, that's people in other counties, people in cities, people at the state level, federal level. Nobody knows what a county executive is. That's been my experience, is that almost every person I've met in the last 4.5 years, and I introduce myself to them, they don't know what that means when I say I'm the Cache County executive. And maybe that's a failure on the part of the county, previous executives, and myself, that we haven't done a good enough job educating our public on what their form of government is. But I think that's a problem, and I think a major part of that is the fact that there is only one other county in the state that has our form of government, and they don't even call it the same thing we call it. They call it a county mayor. And not to mention the fact that we have multiple forms of government in Utah, including council manager and commission and various sizes of commissions and various sizes of councils. So I understand the confusion that people have with the title, with the role, and my recommendation would be that no one should be giving input on this unless they know what they're talking about. So I think the people that should be giving input on this need to be educated first, because even in this room, I've explained duties of this office before and been met with confusion when it was simply straight from state statute, the duties that were being shared. So I think there is definitely misunderstanding associated with the form of government. I think there is a need for education, and I also think that it's kind of an interesting dynamic that I find myself in, because I actually proposed to the previous county executive and some previous council members years ago that Cache County consider a change in their form of government to change to a council manager form, because I thought at the time that was a superior form, having been a professional manager prior to seeking elected office. However, now that I've been in elected office, I realize that my recommendation of that time, by the way, I was told at the time by Cache County elected officials that was a bad idea, because that person needed to be accountable to the voters, which I thought at the time, I wondered at the time whether or not that was a good point. But I do now, after having served in a position where I've been accountable to the voters and stood for election twice, I think that is an important aspect of the job. And I also think that we have been, I feel like we have been shortchanging ourselves as a county by not empowering this role. And I just want to make clear that all of the comments I'm making here are not about me or any future plans, because I don't plan to run for re-election to this post, and if there were a manager position, I don't plan to run for that. So I just want everyone to know that I'm not making any of these comments based on any future plans of my own. But what I was going to say is, I feel like we have been shortchanging ourselves by not empowering this office, because if you look at other agencies that have this role, or a similar role, such as cities. Many cities across the country have switched to a council manager form of government in recent decades. It's been more common in some states than others, and we even had a council manager form of government available for cities here in Utah for some time, but that was eventually repealed by the legislature because there was pressure from citizens and mayors, because citizens were confused about it, because they thought the mayor was in charge of their city, and they thought they elected somebody to run their city, only to find out that their mayor actually didn't have any authority, and all of that, or most of that authority had been delegated to an appointed manager. And so some years ago, our legislature actually took away that option for cities, and cities can't even create a council manager form. We still can at the county level, we can create that, but cities can't do that
These
anymore.
counties are different than cities, they really are. And I agree with everything you're saying, David, and right now we're talking about the committee, but your input to that committee will be valuable. And like you said, the education and the knowledge that you have will be a big part of what we pull together as we.
Yeah. If I could just finish this one point, that's my last point, and then I'll be quiet. So I just wanted to say, all of those cities that went to a council manager form, none of them got rid of their mayor. They all still have mayors. Every single one still has a mayor. Why is that? It's because there's value in that. And so that's my point. And this isn't even an option for us. If we were to switch to a council manager form, we don't even have that option. I actually think that's the best form. And what I was saying about how we're shortchanging ourselves, I think if this county had an empowered executive, and by empowering them, I mean just give them a better title so that people know what they do and who they are and who they represent. That person could be an advocate for our county, and that's not going to be me, because I won't be here after this term. It could be one of you in that role, and I think that would be valuable to our county, to have an elected advocate for the citizens of Cache County who represents all of the citizens of the county and who can speak to them. And I'd be happy to share this with the committee. My only other thought about the committee, sorry, I said I had one more point, but I did have this last one. I think people who serve on the committee should be people who don't already have an opinion about which way it should go.
That's exactly what I think too. I mean, and I think it's really important. There are certain people that have already expressed a specific opinion, and to me, that's a disqualifier. We need somebody who can look at it in an unbiased way and really gather all the information. That's my goal, is to make that happen. Okay. All right, the 10B, UAC Board of Directors meeting. I will be there in St. George on the 30th. The management conference is, Andrew, do we have everybody signed up to go to that? Do we know?
I was going to say I'm still waiting on one council member to respond, but beyond that,
Okay.
everyone's responded.
Keegan, are you going to be able to go
I was
with?
gonna say, if it's me, you can publicly shame me.
No. No public shame. I just know you haven't been to a UAC conference yet, and it's so valuable. I hope that, I know maybe it doesn't work in your schedule this time, but I hope that you can be a part of that too, because we really, there's a lot of good, relationships that are made and things that we learn as a council.
I would like to go, I had a prior obligation.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Is this the one with all of UAC? So all of the, so you'll be there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think a lot of our elected
All of
officials
our
will be there.
elected, okay.
Yeah, cool. Okay, council member reports. Barbara, could we start with you? Oh, Andrew, please.
You asked me to remind you about the emergency preparation training with Will Lusk.
Thank you. That's why we have Andrew. I got a phone call from Will Lusk, our county emergency manager. There's an obligation for us yearly to get information from him about what would our duties be in the case of an emergency or a disaster. And he's brought us a booklet before, but I don't know that council meeting was exactly the right place to gain useful information. So he and I talked about us going to the sheriff's department and doing a workshop there. And the first date available to do that would be, is it April 22nd, Andrew? Is that what we talked, no, we talked about in May, doing it in May.
Yep.
What's the date? Is it May? Whatever our date is.
Would it be a workshop just before?
Yeah, we'd do it like at 3:30 at the sheriff's office.
We've done that before.
The first meeting of the council in May is on May 13th,
May
and the
13th.
second is on May 27th.
Can we try and do that on the 13th then? Is that?
Did he give you an idea of how long it would be?
No. I can figure that out. Maybe 4 o'clock would be okay. Maybe a half hour is plenty of time. We'll,
If the intent is to have it at 3:30 and we've got to be here by 5 for our council meeting, that's not near enough time to even do it.
Like, are we doing like a,
Could be, but it's not going to be.
are we doing a mock thing?
no, he's just gonna kind of make sure everyone's aware of what they have out of the sheriff's department and what we would need to do in the case of an emergency. I know that if there's some disaster that comes to Cache County, we have specific duties as the council to help give information and be a part of that, and I personally don't know what my
Yeah,
role is.
If the strategy is to, simulate organizing the EOC, then I think it'd be great value add. If it's just, be thinking of these things.
No, we need specifics.
We need it to be, this body is the decision-making body in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, if there's an emergency and you don't have communications, get to the sheriff's department, or what, like, what do we do physically? What do
No, that everyone here needs to understand, that's what we are expected to do.
And that's what we wanted to do, so.
No.
I'll talk with Will and make sure that that's the focus of that workshop.
I would not be available the 13th.
Okay. Can we take notes for you? Would the 27th be better for you in May, Barbara?
Yes.
27th, is that, is that
That's right before Memorial Day.
right after Memorial Day?
Right after.
Yeah.
The day after Memorial Day?
I probably won't be here.
Okay. Let's try and shoot for the 13th then. And if the calendars change and you guys, like, it's not an emergency, no pun intended, but we need to get it.
We won't be able to tell.
I know. So we just need to get it done, but if we can't have the majority of council members there, it's not useful anyway, so keep that on your calendar, and then we'll
The
see if we can
13th?
make. The 13th.
Okay.
We'll try and make that happen. Okay, hey, Barbara, I was asking for a council report.
I was just going to let you know that on May 5th is my first meeting with COG, so that's scheduled to go. I did want to say something about this, and you're probably aware of it. The Honor, Hope, and Health conference is going to be held at the Riverwoods Conference Center, being put on by the Bear River Area Agency on Aging. So it's on April 10th from 8:30 to 4. If you have a chance to go to that, I would recommend that.
It's for veterans and caregivers.
For veterans and caregivers. I sent to you a whole bunch of information for America 250. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but I'm kind of excited about that.
Yes.
To do a celebration for America's 250th birthday, and that I would appreciate, any kind of ideas or the council approving us to go ahead with that, if you look at that resolution and everything. And then what we can do to form a committee to get going on that, because 26 will be here before we know it. And let me see, Dave and Catherine, could I meet with you for a few minutes after?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Keegan?
Yeah, so the Trails Cache is gearing up for Bike to Work Week. That's May 12th through 16th. I guess it's Bike to Everywhere. But they're having a poster contest right now. I think the submissions are due today or tomorrow, but that's something I know a lot of people look forward to every year, and a lot of businesses participate in it. I also attended my first airport board meeting. In it, we adopted fees for non-Logan based aircraft. It's a landing fee for aircraft over 6,000 pounds, and its estimated revenue is supposed to be about $20K extra a year. I did talk to someone after to try and understand better how those fees work, and one thing that was pointed out to me that I didn't realize is that potentially if we were to charge aircrafts that had lighter weight, that could potentially discourage them from landing and have unintended consequences, because landing is what you want to practice most, because that's where most accidents occur. So I was educated on something that I didn't know before, and I'll try to continue to understand the nuances of the boards that I serve on, but it was helpful, so
Okay, great.
that's all I got.
Nolan?
Two things. I've mentioned this before, so I don't want to beat the drum all the time, but I really think as a council, we need to meet with the planning and zoning and map out things on water. The subdivisions that are coming before us are very adversarial because those who talk about water, the planning and zoning has the position that they can't make a decision because it's up to the state. But we did have a meeting as a council before with our state water engineer. I think we need to do that again and get some kind of policy out there just so that we're consistent. I mean, as you saw in a couple rezones, there's some springs, there's some wells, and water is an issue that brings heated arguments in an instant. So I just think it would help our planning and zoning and help us as a county as we're thinking about those things.
Two things. I thought they were doing a study to let us
They
know
are.
how much, we haven't got that result yet, correct? And then I totally agree with that. Would you take charge of setting something up that works? Like put together some kind of a structure that will be beneficial to us, to the water people, and to planning and zoning, if you'll take charge of that.
It's just another meeting, but I think it's something we need to do.
I do too. I do too. I think it's really important. I think we need to identify what water we have as a county and how it's distributed and.
Well, for instance, in our last meeting, it was decided in Box Elder that before you do a subdivision, you gotta do a test well. And that's expensive, but,
Might be
it's an
necessary.
idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, ideas presented, we need to be thinking about that because, yeah, if you lose your water source, you lose your living. So we gotta be careful about that. And then second, JD Gunnell reached out to me. We've all been assigned committees and stuff, and he was wondering if there could not be a council member assigned to help with his department.
With the
Extension.
Extension.
Extension, yeah.
They bring a lot to the county. He just thought that would be a good thing to have us have a
Aren't
council
you
member.
cousins? That
We
kind of
are.
makes sense.
But
Are you
then,
volunteering?
he's my nephew, I'm his uncle, so.
Oh, okay.
Because they're both so willing to serve.
Yeah, but I thought it was a good point
That is a good point.
That's a really good idea.
because the extension does bring a lot to the county. So,
Okay.
Increased
ought to-
communication is always a good idea.
so that ought to be something we consider. So I told him we'd mention that.
Perfect. Catherine?
I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
Okay, David?
I'm very willing to serve on that committee. Or, you know, as
I
far as
think you'd be-
represent the extension, I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Okay, it's yours.
But if there was someone else that wanted to actually learn what ag is or something, you know, that would actually be pretty good for them to.
I would like to learn more about gardening.
That's a wonderful.
I've actually called him a couple of
Department
times.
to actually, you know, to really learn about a lot of things in taking care of ourselves. I appreciate everything, again, the Cache Valley Center of the Arts has done. You've done a lot. And then I just want to make it aware that on the fire district new member vote, that was not unanimous. It was a 2-to-1 vote. So I didn't want to make it sound like it was everyone in favor of that particular district membership. So I was the dissenting vote.
Okay. Anything else? Mark?
You saw what OMP did, just, Barbara chaired that meeting and got a lot done in the last one. It was awesome. So I want to throw a plug there for a good meeting there, Barbara. I thought it was really good. I was also going to add, and this is kind of in conjunction with what Nolan said, but today, due to a different responsibility, I was in attendance at the Northern Utah Water Conference. Box Elder County presented their master water plan. And I'm reminded that we as a county need to come up with one as well, which is in conjunction with what Nolan was talking about with planning and zoning. So maybe to cut down on an extra meeting, we could work the two together.
Probably a good idea.
I think the master plan informs the planning and zoning direction.
Yeah.
But Box Elder has a pretty good example that we could look at as far as, what would fit with another strategy impacting the Bear River.
Bring a lot of people to the table. At least it's a
And
side thing.
we have a library board meeting coming up in April. That's the Really the only next thing, nothing else has gone on since our last meeting.
Since our last meeting, Catherine and I were on KVNU for the People. We're famous now. We're part of our goals as leadership of the council this year. We talked about doing a better job of communicating with the public and with the citizens. And so even though it's a very it's not an appealing thing to do for me. Catherine's so much better, but I feel like it's important. So we're gonna try and do that periodically, put our message out there. And so if there's ever things that you feel like you want the public to know, or like, it doesn't have to be me and Catherine on the radio, it can be any of you. I just think that we as a council need to do a better job of communicating. Not a better job, but let's just make sure that what the messages that we want people to hear, that we're kind of putting ourselves out there. So we'll be asking, Jason said we're welcome anytime on the radio. So you guys stay in touch with me if there's things you want to talk about. We'll set that up and we'll move forward doing that. We had a meeting for the Recreation Steering Committee, the feasibility study that we're doing on that. That's going to move forward. There was an open house last night at the library. I was there for about an hour and a half. Executive Cook was there talking to people about the future. It was mostly put on by Logan City. This was them trying to help educate their citizens as to what they're going to do with their rec program. But it was a chance for us to talk a little bit about the study that we're going to do. There was a QR code for people to sign up to be a part of the study when that comes out. And so we were able to do that. It was good to meet with the public and be a part of that last night. And that's about all I have to report. So I would take a motion to move into our next phase of this meeting.
I move to excuse into executive session pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-205, discussion of purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, et cetera.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.